I'm going to be talking to you today about my perspective in education and how the dots link there, right? So this is the problem we see in Malaysia. And as a teacher, I'm not used to speaking out alone, so I'm going to get you guys to get involved. So can someone read out the first stat? As a teacher, I can't wait until someone reads out the first stat.
1 out of 5 Malaysian children do not complete their secondary school education.
Thank you. So another teaching technique is actually called popcorn. So can someone else then read out the second stat?
44% of 14-year-olds in Malaysia do not meet minimum international proficiency levels.
Right. And one more popcorn? Maybe from this side? Yeah.
60% of 14-year-olds in Malaysia do not meet minimum international proficiency levels in mathematics.
Right. So these are the stats in Malaysia. And what this tells us is that 14-year-olds in Malaysia are 3 years behind their peers in Singapore and 4 years behind their peers in Shanghai. This is the average Malaysian. Right now, I understand most of you are Monash students. You guys probably can't relate to this because you guys are probably on the furthest end of the spectrum. And right now, some of you might feel like in Monash, it feels like such a high-pressure, competitive place that you need to perform because everyone seems to be better than you. But the average Malaysian is far, far behind, and we're part of the, we standing here right now are part of the privileged group in Malaysia. But this is what the numbers don't tell you, right? And the next teaching technique I'm going to do is like whole group of involvement. So we're going to read this all out together. All right. 1, 2, 3. Right. These are the numbers these are the stories or narratives behind the stats. These are the mindsets, these are the challenges that the numbers sometimes cannot capture that prevent students from low-income communities from performing well in school. Sometimes we feel like we're in a merit-based society. We feel if you work hard, yeah, you can succeed. But the opposite end of that spectrum is that we might think that those that start off on a lower rung deserve to be there because they didn't work hard. But there are a lot of circumstances that prevent them, structural barriers that prevent them from succeeding, right? So what is my aspiration for Malaysia? I will cover this in 2 points. One is the classroom level. What do we want to see as learning happening in the classroom itself? And the second point will be a bit more about what do we want to see from a structural point of view. So in the classroom is probably the easiest piece to talk about. Everyone probably can agree, like we want thematic learning. We want design thinking included in classrooms. How do kids identify problems, solve it, and then, identify problems in their communities or surroundings, and then solve for it? This is the basic foundation of entrepreneurship, and it's actually the best way for students to retain knowledge because they're applying it straight away, right? So some of our alumni have started programs that cover the space of what is called maker education. And we work with kids, and some of the kids in this competition here, these were kids mainly from Kuala Selangor, Sekinchan, mainly paddy farmers or fishermen. Some of the kids before this program started running, they had never left their town, but they won a national competition, and 7 of them got to go to Silicon Valley out of 10 kids in Malaysia under the MDEC program. Right? So it's not about the lack of ability, but it's the lack of opportunity. Besides STEM and digital 21st century, everyone's talking about the 4th industrial revolution. Arts also is something that actually is an important part of education that we feel we don't want it to be left behind. So a lot of our fellows and alumni also run programs to develop creativity and expression The part about our education system is sometimes we don't ask kids to express themselves that much. And then throughout university, it's again like just lectures, lectures, lectures. And then at the workplace, please pass an interview and speak and share your views. So there's a bit of a disjoint between that. So this, I mean, the top one there is a picture that we did on Lion King. And anyone in Penang, coming up in Penang, there's going to be the Georgetown Arts Festival. So there's an alumni running a program across 5 low-income schools in Perak. And none of these kids spoke English before that, and they went through a 6 months intensive leadership development program and creative program, and they're going to be staging a musical on the 23rd to the 25th of April. So if any of you guys are going to Georgetown Festival, please drop by that show as well. The kids are totally inspiring. But those are all the external pieces, right, when it comes to education. For me personally, I'm a lot more interested in what's going on internally. In this school of thought, or this area is called social and emotional learning. It can be considered as leadership. It is also commonly seen as leadership as well. But we really ask the kids to deep dive. What are their assumptions, biases, prejudices? What are their insecurities? What are their fears? What are their hopes? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? And really try to surface all of that out. I was never asked this question that much in school, so I just wandered through school trying to figure out, like, okay, you're good at science and maths, so just do that. Anyone who did science and maths should be an engineer. But what was it that I really cared about? I only discovered it when I was about 26 years old. So it took a while for me to discover my passion, and I think like we need to instill passion and get the kids to understand themselves a lot more. Group work as well. At university, I totally hated group work. Everyone always said just work in groups, but no one actually taught you how to do it. And there is actually a system and a science and an art behind working in groups. Right? So this is what we want to see from a classroom perspective. From a system perspective, this is what at least our best bet is in terms of what should happen. School level change and school management. So right now, our whole system is too centralized. Every decision is probably made at Putrajaya and then delegated to the state, delegated to district, and then finally to the school level. Schools don't have any control over the hiring and firing of the principal, the selection, hiring and firing of principal, and similarly for teachers. My point of view is that there is an opportunity for us to explore a board of governors for school to manage school really well. And in Malaysia, we already have this example with the independent Chinese schools, or even the Chinese publicly funded schools, as well as the Montessori schools. They have their own board of governors that manage that, and there are some amount of public funds given for them to run the school. I also believe in an open hiring system for teachers. Right now, you have to either sign up as a teacher after you pass SPM and go through a teacher training college to get into primary school, or you take a university degree and maybe you might get a spot into secondary school. Anyone else that wants to make a change, whether you're at 25, 26, or later points in your year, it's almost impossible for you to get into the civil service at that point. For me, it's like mind-boggling that an industry has all this talent that decided they wanted to be a teacher when they were 17, and anyone else that decides later on doesn't have a chance, right? Principal training is also a key point we see that needs to be drastically improved. And actually, training typically has happened more in in lectures and theaters, halls, just like this. But actually, the real learning happens in practice. So there needs to be a lot more coaching, a lot more guidance for principals on the job, on the ground. And finally, school inspectorate. Under this new Malaysia, we're all about independence and transparency. The education system is one of the most, it's extremely closed, and there's no sense of check and balance. So the school inspectorate is almost like an external auditor, if you'd like, for a company, but there is a separation of duties. In the Ministry of Education right now, that's all consolidated under one arm, reporting to the Director General, Secretary General, and then the Minister of Education. I would like to see a Malaysia where there is a Parliament Select Committee that actually monitors the performance of school performance, so that the parliament members can actually say, yes, the money is being spent in the right way and the right outcomes are given. Without this independent check and balance, performance cannot be guaranteed, and you're just hoping and hoping, right? But I can go on and on about the structural changes that I want to see, but let's move on to a bit more fun stuff, right? So why do we believe this is actually possible, and how are we going to make this change? It always starts with one life. Sean, he didn't want his picture taken, so he and Suga here as well, both of them actually came from low-income families. Sean, at the age of 15, was working in a restaurant for about 5-6 hours a day after school, earning 5 ringgit an hour, and he only had 2 A's at PMR, which is you take it at 15 years old. At UPSR, he attended a vernacular school, and he had gotten about 5 A's. So his education, he went like from a top student in his vernacular school, going into the national system, he just dropped because of language. And he had a sense of, like, I'm a failure, I'm not going to succeed in this world. A teacher, one of our teachers joined the school, really believed in him, saw his potential as a math Olympiad, and then continued to train him. Sean went on to get 5 A's at SPM, went on to get 3.75 CGPA at STPM, and then get a scholarship to do finance and accounting at Sunway University, right? So he was able to do this because there was someone that believed in him. Did Sean have the ability with him the whole time? Yes, of course. But again, what kind of guidance and coaching did Sean receive to actually unleash that full potential? We also run, it's also about representation, right? How can we make sure that we get a lot more women educated, especially in STEM? So we run tons of programs in here. One of my favorites is actually this group of girls, again, in Johor, designed a device to measure flooding in paddy fields, because the paddy fields that she was living nearby would get flooded all the time, and then there would be a loss of income for the family. So they used these programming tools to design that, and then they just run competitions. How fun is learning when you're actually helping other people and not just learning for an exam? Now, all of this are just individual cases of success. Our education system is 5.5 million students. Are these real successes actually possible, and what's the long-term goal? And how do we want to scale that up? So for me, my inspiration on a daily basis, like this is possible, we need to do this, comes from my younger brother, right here. At school, we were lucky enough to go to public, private, and international school. But at the point of 17 and 18, he was told at the international school that he wouldn't actually pass high school. Because he had dyslexia and ADHD, and they didn't know how to handle that. So my parents said, like, nonsense, we're going to take you out of this school and put you into a school that believes in you. And right now, he still does these jumps at the age of 32, but he also has a PhD in environmental science from the University of Zurich, and he's doing reforestation work in Sabah, Perak, and Kelantan. Right? So he's saving our national rainforest. And for me, this is my inspiration. If he was written off, we would have lost one passionate Malaysian passionate environmentalist. So who are the other kids that we're losing out on in the system? And we want to try to change that. So this is what Teach Malaysia has achieved over the last 9 years. We've been in more than 100 schools, 350 alumni, and across 10 states. The students we impacted is 87,000. I don't know where the 300,000 earlier came from, but we hope to get there by at least 2023. So it's still a work in progress, but thank you for the high target. And this is what drives us, our vision statement for the students in Malaysia, that they are empowered to be leaders of their own learning in school, of their future after school, and the future of our nation. We need to teach our kids how to be responsible citizens across the board. And with that, thank you very much.